From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined with our guest super producer, Max Gherkin Williams. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Last week, we gave a sneak peek of our audio book. You can hear part of an entire chapter for free with 3 mystery missing minutes. But now, this Thursday, we are back with one of our favorite segments in the show, Listener Mail, where we get to hear from you, our fellow conspiracy realists. Just going to be 100% candid here, folks. This is going to be a little bit of a punchy one. I don't know about you guys as far as a quick check-in, which we usually do before we go on air, but I'm feeling it today. How about you guys? Feeling good? Feeling great? How are you?
I'm feeling the joy, feeling the love, feeling the pain. Trying to be open to all the feels.
Doing good, Yassine. Yeah, feeling good.
Doing good, Yassine.
Isn't that from Most
Def
song?
Yassine Bey, yeah. Oh, you know what? It's such an old phrase. No, I think you're right. Formerly known as Most Def. Yes. So we're gonna ask ourselves, what is a fact? We're going to talk about a meta conspiracy on the part of the powers that be, which I think will be apropos to many of us listening along today at home. But maybe first we start with something that I think really, really stood out to you, Matt. Something you had asked me about this off air, if I had heard of this thing, and I had, and we have one of those lovely conversations where it gets to the point that we have to stop and say, dang, we should be recording this.
I feel like never once have I brought something to your attention, Ben, and you have not heard of it. I swear. I can't surprise you with anything, Bolin. That's okay. Here we go, guys. This is a message from Chief.
Hey, guys. So I was watching the news the other night, and I came across a story that mentioned a company by the name of Shotspotter. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this company before, but what they do is they place microphones, 20 to 25 microphones per square mile in a city with the intent of identifying, locating gunshots. My worry is who has access to those microphones and what are they listening to when there are no gunshots? Found a report by the ACLU that's pretty interesting. Figured you guys would be interested in it because it raises some pretty interesting privacy questions. Look out, security state, police state, already here, not incoming. You guys have a great day. Once again, feel free to do with this what you will. Chief out.
Man, this really rings a bell. I almost think I've heard about it on my my weird Ring doorbell, opted in automatically neighborhood report.
That would actually make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because ShotSpotter, if anything, is an integrated system. That's what it's designed to do. Work with all the other stuff that's already in place.
Yeah, it's leveraging existing infrastructure. It wants to be kind of bundled with every other possible surveillance tool used by law enforcement, and then, of course, private entities, private companies. The surprising thing here is, they've been around in the background for quite some time. I think they started in the 90s, which might surprise a lot of people. Matt, how would you describe the system overall? Do you think people are happy with it? Do you think it effectively triangulates these sounds? Do you think it saves lives?
Well, the tech is super cool. Let's start there. The Chief describes it really well. A bunch of microphones that are concentrated within a square mile, right? And often there are multiple square miles that have the system in place. And then that means you've got, I don't know. I mean, think about how many mics that is, guys. 20 microphones per square mile. then let's say if you think about how big Atlanta is, maybe a certain sector of Atlanta, let's just say Midtown Atlanta, where our office is. That's several square miles. Now, if a gunshot occurs anywhere within that grid system, each one of those microphones is going to pick it up because of the nature of the loudness of a gunshot. And just like triangulation, the way it works with GPS, if you've got one device and it can get pinged by 3 different places or 3 different cell phone towers, you can tell where that device is by measuring the distance from tower A, the distance to tower B, and distance to tower C, right? So you can figure out exactly where that device is in space and time. Similarly, with these microphones, or they call them acoustic sensing devices, I think, you can triangulate a shot fired. That's really cool. I think that's neat that you can do that. It's all about the application of what are you using it for. And in this case, it seems like it's being used for a really good thing. Detect when shots have been fired so that first responders, right? You're talking fire, you're talking ambulance, even police can show up to that place where shots were fired and hopefully help somebody who's been a victim of a gunshot, if that's the case. Or and this is the big selling point for Shotspotter, you guys, to recover ballistics. So recover the shell casings for a crime that's been committed, i.e. shooting a gun in a city.
I got to say, yes, fully agree with you about the potential there to save lives or to bring justice to victims of a crime. However, one of the issues is that ShotSpotter doesn't leave this location just to the technology. Apparently, they also have modified alerts at the request of local law enforcement, and their calculations have not been independently tested, at least as of 2021. So there are opportunities for some nefarious things to occur, or some certainly not above board things to occur. Why did I say not above board? Below board things to occur. It sounds
whichever.
weird. Anyway,
some distance from the board. Another thing too is a lot of maybe not a lot, but some other cities like Chicago that have used this technology have not renewed it because they said they didn't really have the data to back up that it was successful. And I was going to sort of make a bit of a callous point where it's like, isn't hearing, going to the idea of it saving lives, going to the area of the gunshots after the gunshots have been fired, sort of like getting an Instagram ad for buying a boat after you've already just bought a boat. Like, you're not going to save the life because the life has already been taken, presumably, or attempted to have been taken. So you're identifying areas of problematic, behavior and stuff. And then, yes, I agree with you about the crime solving aspect, because I think one point that a spokesperson for either the police force or the company made was that people in certain neighborhoods that are high crime have become desensitized to gunfire and don't even call the police anymore.
Well, yeah. Okay, so there's a lot there to respond to. The first thing is the alerting police when shots have been fired. Where I lived for a long time in Chamblee, Georgia, there was pretty constant gunfire. You would hear shots fired a lot, but you would also hear fireworks going off at times when you wouldn't expect to hear fireworks going off. And
Same
it was
here.
it was very difficult for me as just a regular old citizen who does hear both of those sounds quite often to differentiate between, what's a series of fireworks than what actually was a 10-round clip that just got unloaded. And often it did. But I never once called the police to say, hey, shots have been fired somewhere near me in this part of Chamblee, Georgia. Never once did I do that. And what they're saying with shots fired is you don't need anybody to report shots fired. Their system detects when a gun is fired. And so, you literally don't need anyone to report it, which is a really good thing, but is also a really bad thing, right? Because now you've got an automated system that is reporting things like that and sending police officers, theoretically, to a very specific location within, I think it's less than 90 feet, like a 90-foot radius of where this shot was fired.
which is impressive. It's definitely a helpful thing, has the potential to be so. It has been used, I believe, in many, many court cases by this point. Because again, the 1990s, pretty long time ago, right? We're talking 32 years ago. So we must assume that they have been working on this technology for the entirety of that time, right? They've been improving it, hopefully, getting it down to that impressive 90-foot radius, rather. But my question, Matt, is I feel like any question I know, you can already anticipate it. We're so on the same page about this. Surveillance. Chief, you brought this up. I love how you said it's not incoming. You're right. The surveillance state is already here. That's why places like ACLU are asking about this stuff, right? Because as I understand, the detectors, once planted, once deployed, they don't turn off. And they're also apparently much more frequent in minority communities.
Oh, yes. They call them high crime areas.
But I mean, devil's advocate, I mean, if they are high crime areas and these gunshots are being detected there, is that really profiling? If the data is real? And isn't perhaps it a good thing for those areas to be more policed? Again, now I know, but depending on the quality and the caliber of the police, the people doing the policing. But I mean, I recently watched this movie Barbarian. No spoilers, but it's great. Watch it. But there is some social commentary in it about Detroit specifically. And there are some areas where it's hard to get cops out. Because they're running all over the place. So maybe having more accurate data could help divide resources better, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, because of the accuracy of deployment, right? That can be very helpful. There are so many problems with this, guys. Ben, you pointed out some. Maybe it's worth doing a quick episode on this, spend a good 45 minutes on it, because it's so expensive to deploy. It's $10,000 per square mile just to install the microphones and get them up and running. Then every year after that, it's over $60,000 per square mile to operate. And that has to do with who's listening, which is one of Chief's other big questions. Who's actually listening to this stuff? Well, it's people who are going to work for Shotspotter who get an alert that's like gunfire detected, right? And there is a series of short clips of this detected gunfire, I'm doing air quotes, from multiple microphones. And that person is trained, or supposed to be trained, to be able to detect whether it is actually a gunshot or a firework or something else. If it is a gunshot, what's the caliber that was shot? Is it a fully automatic weapon? Like how quick in succession were these shots fired? And all kinds of other information about it, which then better equips law enforcement when they're going into a situation, right? To have that information.
I want some transparency into how the tech works. Because, I think, we're all interested in, audio processing and, our audio forensics. If there's some sand to the way this tech works, I would be interested. What are they basing this on? If you have, a Simply Safe home security system or any home security, this is not a Simply Safe ad, you have, glass break sensors. Those operate on sound. They detect a certain frequency of sound, and then they know that it's not just the cat, scraping the hardwoods or something. I'm wondering how they determine that. It has to just be they have samples and they're matching it up with a waveform, to see if it hits a certain shape. I'm fascinated by the tech, but it doesn't seem like they're being particularly transparent about it. And I guess there's good reason. Could be trade secret type stuff.
Proprietary algorithms. There's probably some machine learning at this point to do a comp, but the idea is that they are having a human element in there, right, Matt? And that's something that Chief is asking too. Essentially, who watches the Watchmen, right? Age-old question, and it's one that usually has less than perfect answers. I mean, even if you just look at the basics of Shotspotter, you'll see that it's considered quite controversial in places like Detroit, places like Chicago. This is also, I haven't pulled it up here, but I remember Shotspotter apparently apparently tried to cut off some public records requests at the figurative past, and told their customers how to go about denying or redacting information they had to provide. And that's interesting to me, because is that inherently sinister? It sounds like a cover up, but it also could just be them trying to like protect their processes as a company, and then also protect officers, right? Because if you plan, like, look, we talked about devil's advocate earlier. Let me take us to a darker place. Someone knows how this stuff works, and they, for some reason, want to target first responders, then it's very easy to set up an ambush and just deploy the right kind of ammunition, have a crew set up and waiting. I don't think that's happened yet, and I hope it never does. But there are problems with this.
People have been falsely accused, and I think in a couple cases sent to prison, because this technology identified that shots were fired at a particular location, and then someone was picked up at that location and accused of shooting a gun. So you can imagine, if you really wanted to pin something on somebody, you literally go to where they live and shoot a gun at that location. If Shotspotter is active, then leave, and now police are going to respond to that exact area of shots fired, right? That's scary to me. That's really scary to me. And as you mentioned already, the ACLU has a ton of problems with this. A bunch of other outlets have a ton of problems with this tech, and they are just open mics sitting there listening all the time, 24/7 in your neighborhood, if this is active where you live. Much in the same way the CCTV cameras are working, and the neighborhood cameras are working, and it is constant surveillance all the time.
Well, we also know how imperfect those CCTV cameras can be, or, where it's easy to catch a hooded figure and then, pin it on someone that's dressed similarly or something like that. So this has even less confirming data to back it up, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but it's so integrated. ShotSpotter can have the CCTV cameras in a certain area point to the scene of a crime, alleged crime, or where shots have fired. It can deploy drones in some cities exactly to where the shots were fired. It is that creepy Orwellian stuff that I think we should talk about it more. But for now, let's go ahead and take a break, hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll come back. We want to hear from you about this tech, and what do you think, and have you experienced it? But we'll be right back.
And we're back with a message from you. Another message from you. Yes, you. This message comes from one of my favorite nicknames in a minute. Knotta Tweaker. Knotta, last name Tweaker. And you'll understand where this is coming from in just a second. It goes like this. Hey guys and super producers, I should start off by saying I'm stone sober and have been for a long time. That statement will make sense in a moment. I have a question that I don't think you guys have covered. What is fact? Answer, in quotes, something that is known or proven to be true. Grass is green. Well, not to someone with an impairment or ailment of some sort. The walls talk is an absolute fact to someone suffering from many types of head injuries or mental health issues. Those examples could be chalked up to perspective, so I'll go a bit further. A day is 24 hours. An hour is 60 minutes. A minute is 60 seconds. What is a second? Well, a second is 1/86,400th of a day. So what is a day? You see how circular that is? What is time other than a myth we all agree to believe in? If these accepted quote-unquote facts are just beliefs, we all choose to indulge in. My question remains. What is fact? Have fun with this thought. Knotta Tweaker.
That's Knotta with a Knotta.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Knotta. This is you're talking a little bit about tautology, a little bit about circular thinking here. You're also pointing out something that I love, which is a lot of things that are accepted as normal are sort of accidents, legacies of the great game of telephone. Tradition, I once again posit, is little more than peer pressure from the dead. right? But I know that sounds a little hyperbolic, but the question about time, right? Why is an hour 60 minutes and not 100, right? It's a good question. And it goes back to the history of people trying to figure out a system upon which they could all agree. Why is the calendar in the West, the calendar the majority of the world practices in business, why is it 12 months? You know what I mean? You could divide it any number of ways. If you're talking about the basis of what is a fact, the definition, then the idea, not to sound too Ben Shapiro, is a fact is something that has self-evident actual existence. Gravity is a fact, and it doesn't matter how you feel about it, right? I've got some cool sunglasses. I'm dropping them. They're falling at the same rate all the time, even if I have an opinion that says they should not. But really what we're seeing is the limitation of human experience, I would say, because everything we know about physics and science shows us that the rules change when you get to very large or very, very small scales. So fact is just sort of what everybody thinks works.
Well, and even perspective, the idea of perspective has a lot to do with it. I mean, you think about let's say something is proven to be fact in a court of law, that has a lot to do with perspective, even though, they'll say that it has to do with, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, but I mean, we know eyeball witness accounts highly related to perspective. They can be skewed by certain biases, and of course they try their best to make sure that the witnesses are credible and the jury members have no biases and things like that. But it's nearly impossible to inhabit the mind of a human being that is not your own and understand, what makes them tick, outside of a few ticking boxes on a questionnaire. So I mean, when you start getting into facts, legally speaking, that really gets confusing, because we also know, if someone is convicted of a crime, that is supposed to be based on fact. If that's the case, then how can it be overturned? Does that not point to the fallibility of the idea of fact, and how little we should trust the idea of fact when it's based on a system that involves so much perspective and so much bias and so many lies, and you literally have a person whose job it is to convict somebody, no matter what. It's not always necessarily based on truth or fact or fairness. It's about winning. I mean, really. I know that's a little
Charlie Sheen of fact.
Yeah, tiger blood. It's just, I know it's a little bit nihilistic, but I just, we see it time and time again that people, there's a podcast that I worked on several years ago called Murder in Oregon, about a man who was accused, most likely falsely, of murdering this high-ranking government official.
Just got overturned, right?
Correct, as of today. And what does that say for those facts, It's all very fallible, but Ben, to your point, there, scientific facts and things that we know will happen upon repetition. I think those are the closest things to hard, fast facts that we can ever really depend on. But so much else, when you start really dividing it up and chopping it up, it's real easy to lose confidence in the quote unquote facts. Matt, there are so many people that think that it's a fact to say that Jesus Christ died for our sins, or that, God is good and exists in the sky, and that if you're a good person, you're going to heaven. To some people, that is fact, but it's patently unprovable. So that's faith, but they also would believe that it's fact because they have so much faith that to them it becomes fact. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? Not necessarily on the religious angle, but just on the difference between faith and facts.
To me, it comes down to, who do you trust? What institution do you trust? Do you trust your friends, your neighbors, your Facebook group, the scientific community that supports the scientists that you support and agree with? Do you trust the methodology of an experiment? It's weird that in the end, the status of a fact comes down to trust. And I think humanity finds ourselves in a weird place where we've lost trust in a bunch of things So it's way harder to decide that this is fact or not.
And is trust the same as faith?
That's a good one. I don't know.
To me, faith is believing in something that you have no way of proving. You just know it in your bones. But trust is more like believing something someone tells you based on your perception of their credibility. I don't know. It's a heady subject, and it's not just fun stoner talk. I mean, it really is. The idea of the perception of everything we see when we go outside, and like what is a day? How do we divide up our lives? Like what matters? What is futile? So many of these things are all based around the idea of facts and like what you choose to pursue.
The only thing I know that is truly futile is resistance.
It's fair. It's fair. Tell that to the invaders, or they'll tell that to you before they shackle you in their craft. Well, what do y'all think? Let us know. I mean, this is a fun one. Write us at conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com or on the Facebook group. What do you think facts are? Is it up for debate? Are we overthinking this? I don't think so, but maybe that's even overthinking it. But in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break and then come back with one more piece of listener mail.
And we have returned. Guys, I will keep this one super quick. We have a message from A-Frame, which brought up something that I believe we had talked about in the past.
I have a pet theory that I recently discussed on a different Facebook page that to me makes a lot of sense. It's about those more kind of out there conspiracy theories, your flat earthers, indigo children, hollow earther, that kind of just kooky stuff that doesn't really make much sense. And when I think about it, I think that kind of theory is propagated by the powers that be in order to make the act of questioning the government seem ridiculous. Oh yeah, you think that Iran-Contra is worse than they like to say it was. That means that you probably also think the earth is flat, etc. That's not necessarily the best example, but that's my point with the more out there, easily disproven theories, that the reason those remain so popular is to keep the more realist view of it out of the public favor. And that about sums it up without just repeating the same point. So thanks for the show. I love it. Found you guys when you were guests behind the Bastards. And after that episode, I was like, I like these guys a lot. So thanks for what you do. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, A-Frame. This is something we've talked about in the past. What do you guys think? Do you think governments might purposely propagate conspiracy theories?
Yeah. Isn't that what PSYOPs is? I mean, to a degree, is about like spreading misinformation for the benefit of your own personal agenda or your own, national agenda.
It works really well to discredit a leader you don't like.
Yeah, agreed. We also know that there's a common misconception that the FBI coined the term conspiracy theory. That is not true, but it is true that they certainly used manipulation of the media in the wake of the JFK assassination to instruct all papers and broadcast stations of note to refer to anything that didn't fit the official narrative as a conspiracy theory. It's also an ongoing joke on Reddit. If you enjoy reading, every few months, you guys know this, someone will post some version of the following question: what conspiracy theories do you believe may actually be true? And inevitably, there's somebody who comes in and says that I believe this Reddit post keeps coming up because governments want to know how much we know. That's, I think, meant in the spirit of a chuckle. But I feel like it's absolutely plausible. We talked about how propaganda is conspiratorial in some ways, right? And the U.S. has propaganda abroad and domestic. We also know that, like you said, Matt, this can be very effective when wielded against an opponent in a space of information control, right? Like conspiracy theories about people of the Jewish faith are very, very prevalent in parts of the Middle East, right? And on the rise in parts of East Asia as well. Conspiracy theories about the U.S. government are incredibly popular in North Korea. No surprise. And it's not like the people who are falling for some of these are in any way unintelligent. They're just working with the information they have at the time. And also in the case of the U.S. has done a lot of dirt over the years. So we talked about this in the past, like it's quite, I hate to say it, this show is all about exercising critical thought. But if someone comes to us, which happens quite often, and pitches an idea of the U.S. government or some faction thereof conspiring to do something, at this juncture, the three of us don't immediately say no at this point. You know what I mean? So, for instance, you will see governments spreading conspiracy theories in the ancient past and in the modern day. Like, I would ask you, Matt, do you think Russia is propagating conspiracy theories to support the conflict in Ukraine? God, that's a really softball. I did a terrible job with that question.
I mean, I think the West is doing the exact same thing to support their stance of, soft diplomacy and tactics to try and push Russia after Crimea. And then it kind of backfired a little bit, or maybe it's working out exactly how they want. I think those kinds of theories that get floated around and put on social media on purpose by government agents, I think, I don't know. I know that that's real because I've seen it. And it's been proven that federal funds go to this kind of thing. So it's not just Russia doing it.
No, there are very few good guys left. I mean, I would also say, to your point, A-Frame, it's not just governments in general, right? We can accept that all governments will, as rational actors, use any means available to kind of exert their goals. And often the goals that they are chasing inherently require damage to other actors, right? States are very self-centered. If any state you can imagine, yes, including Bhutan, any state you can imagine, if it were a person, would be a pretty bad person in terms of their behavior. And that's, again, not a ding. Governments are a big part of the way the world works.
And corporations aren't immune either.
Of course not. I just feel like if anyone's got this tactic in their playbook, then, logically speaking, any opponent to that government or company or hacker group or whomever it might be is going to have to play just as dirty. There's no way. There's no two ways around it. If people are using misinformation or disinformation as a tactic or strategy, then what do you think? The truth will set you free? No, you have to be just as dirty. That's the only way. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it's how it works. So I think for us to believe that, the acts that we see other quote unquote bad actor governments or whatever, doing, that we're somehow immune to on our shining castle on the hill, I think that's just silly to think.
Yeah, to the point about corporations, which are reading my mind there, Matt, too. It reminds me of one of my favorite recent urban legends or internet legends. It's not proven, but there has been this long-standing conspiracy that Walt Disney was frozen, his entire body, or his head was frozen, with the hopes being that he could one day be resurrected. That's not the conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory that's interesting is this. It's the idea that Disney made the movie Frozen and named it Frozen so that when people searched Disney Frozen, they would stop running into that story about Walt Disney being frozen. Instead, they would run into the movie. It is, I don't know about the motivations, but it's true that has ascended in search. You're going to see references to the film if you Google or use your search browser of choice to search Frozen Disney.
Hell, they doubled down and made Frozen 2. Talk about muddying the waters there.
It isn't quite the same thing, but we also see more closer, I think, to what we're talking about here. A-Frame is the character assassination smear tactics used by big oil or big tobacco when they want to discredit a scientist, right? Or they want to discredit a politician. We have said this point before. The danger of weaponizing the phrase conspiracy theory is that it draws a false equivalency between some patently untrue things and some very real, very dangerous things. It's just like you're describing. It's very convenient. It's insidious for someone to say, hey, this person is exposing too much about the CIA, right? And what was it? Freedom Airlines? Was that the one? Air America?
Yeah,
that was it.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I think it was Air America. So this person is getting too close to the truth about Air America and the CIA and the drug trade. So let's smear them as a conspiracy theorist and let's say they believe in all these other crazy things. I don't know. Factions of the U.S. government spread conspiracy theories about the election, right? In recent years. I don't have specific proof. This would need to be more of an episode, I think, for us to dive in and say, here are the following examples of when someone tried to cover up something true with something that seemed kind of bonkers or distracting. Like ask yourself this, when you see so-called conspiratorial investigations on television, or, on your streaming platform of choice, how come they talk about like hunting ghosts? How come they talk about hunting Bigfoot? There's room for that, but why aren't they talking about lobbying? Why aren't they talking, you know what I mean? Why aren't they talking about ongoing COINTELPRO ops or assassinations? It's because that stuff's true.
Yeah, and also like fantasy is easier to indulge in. Not to say that all of that stuff's fantasy, but it's a lot easier to, it's less depressing. It doesn't hit as close to home, and it's entertainment as opposed to education. It requires less active viewing and participatory, listening and viewing. Like it's just like, I just lay back and watch these kooky, ghost hunters get spooked in the dark, as opposed to having to learn about how lobbying works and why it's so insidious and all of the ins and outs. And it can just, it can take you down some rabbit holes that maybe are uncomfortable. So people would rather stay complacent.
Adam Conover's doing cool stuff on that show, The G Word, on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with former President Barack Obama. Also, one of the big coups on that show was gaining entrance to a meatpacking plant. Those things are pretty locked down, which I kind of assumed, but I wasn't aware of the extent of their security. And he makes a sandwich with the former president. But yeah, I enjoyed that show. I haven't watched all of it. Well, we'd love your help with this one, fellow conspiracy realist. A-Frame, you have written in about something that I think that we have thought about often over the years. So you're in the right place, and hopefully our fellow listeners can help us find some specific examples. And we'll look to, and hopefully we can make that an episode in the future, as well as an episode on Shotspotter. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Knotta Tweaker. Thank you, A-Frame. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We can't wait for you to be a part of the show. We try to be easy to find online: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, MySpace, Ouija boards, vision boards, all kinds of boards, surfboards too, whatever, skateboards. Just find us there. We look forward to hanging out. But if you say, hey, I don't sip the social meds, or I have a condition, I'm very scared of boards in general, just the idea, planks, squeak me out, then we got your back. There are many other ways to contact us. Why not give us a phone call?
That's right. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, please give yourself a cool nickname. We don't care what it is. That'll just help us identify you next time you call in. You've got 3 minutes. Say whatever you'd like. Just remember to let us know if we can use your name and voice on the air. And if you don't want to send us a voicemail, you can instead send us an email. We are
Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.